Welcome, dear listener, to The Deep Dive. We're the place that sits through mountains of information, articles, all that research, to bring you the purest gold. Insights designed just for you. And this deep dive is brought to you by Beyond Backtesting, your partner in understanding market dynamics. Today, we're really digging into the trading world. Not just, how to snag a quick win, but the real stuff, building genuine longevity and consistent profitability. Our mission, to pull out the most powerful, practical, maybe even slightly non-obvious insights that can truly maximize your success. We're moving past the super complex, the speculative ideas, getting to grounded, impactful frameworks.
That's absolutely right. We've meticulously gone through a ton of sources. We're talking complexity, science, wisdom, from market legends, the whole lot, to distill 7 core principles. And these aren't just technical tricks, no. They represent fundamental shifts.
Right.
Shifts in perspective across psychology, risk management, and, well, how you even design your trading system. Honestly, if you want the highest return on your time, your attention, these are the ideas.
So if you're looking for that edge, that unfair advantage, ways to not just trade, but to really thrive, settle in. We've got some pretty transformative stuff to unpack for you today. Okay, let's jump right in. The first big idea. It's a foundational shift in how you even see yourself as a trader. It's about moving from being an architect, trying to design that one perfect monolithic system, to becoming more like a gardener, cultivating a whole diverse ecosystem of strategies.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here is how this concept just beautifully blends different fields. Think about it. From complexity science, right? We learn that in complex adaptive systems, which markets definitely are, direct control, it's pretty much an illusion. You cultivate conditions, you nudge things, but you don't demand outcomes. And that clashes pretty hard with the typical engineering mindset, the systematic trader trying to build the perfect machine.
Right, and then you layer on the wisdom from market wizards, the legends. They all basically say there's no single right way. Success comes from a portfolio of approaches, different tools for different jobs, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And this reframes your whole identity, the architect. They're under immense psychological pressure. Every tiny flaw in their one system feels like a deep personal failure. It's brutal, leads to burnout. But the gardener accepts that some plants will fail. It's natural. A losing strategy isn't a personal flaw. It's just data, information. It becomes, like James Carse talked about, an infinite game. It's about cultivation, about staying in the game, not this finite game of just being right all the time.
That makes so much sense. Less pressure, more adaptation.
Yeah.
So, okay, for someone listening who wants to embrace this gardener mindset, what are the practical steps? How do you actually do it?
Well, you start by diversifying your crops. You deliberately build a portfolio, maybe 3 to 5 simple, ideally uncorrelated strategies. So, for example, you might have trend following on commodities, mean reversion on some equity pairs, maybe volatility selling on indices, different things.
Keep different strategies, like different plants in the garden. Got it.
Exactly. Then you manage the soil. Your main job shifts. It's about the overall health of this ecosystem, focusing on your infrastructure, your data quality, a really solid risk management engine. Is your setup fertile? Is it clean?
The foundations need to be strong.
Right. And finally, weed and water. You need a process. Institute quarterly reviews, maybe.
Yeah.
Strategies that are underperforming, those are the weeds. You reduce their capital. Strategies that are thriving, give them more capital. That's the water. Your focus shifts completely to the health of the portfolio, not agonizing over every single strategy's performance.
And the payoff isn't just potentially better returns, right? It's also about smoothing out that equity curve, that line showing your capital growth, making it less volatile.
Precisely. A smoother equity curve, and just as importantly, a significant reduction in your personal stress. Less emotional reactivity to every little up and down. That's huge.
Okay, that gardener mindset provides resilience. But even a gardener needs resources. That brings us perfectly to the second insight, which tackles survival head-on. It's about structuring your capital allocation to mirror the logic of an infinite game. Basically, setting things up so you can never be forced out of the market.
Exactly. This takes that Carse philosophy, keep playing, don't just focus on winning this round, and makes it operational. We combine it with a really practical risk frameworks. Think of Nassim Taleb's barbell idea, hyper safe plus hyper risky, or Ed Thorp's meticulous logic about sizing your bets according to your actual edge, not just gut feel.
So why is this so profound? I mean, most traders just have one big pool of capital, right? And often, let's be honest, emotions dictate the risk. Fear, greed.
That's the problem. This capital router creates a mechanical separation. It's simple but powerful. You have capital purely for survival, your core, and then separate capital for those decisive strikes, the opportunities.
So you're replacing that emotional seat of the pants allocation with an algorithm. A simple rule.
Precisely. It's designed to solve a fundamental failure mode. That tendency to get euphoric and risk too much when you're winning, or too scared and risk too little when you're in a drawdown. Those impulses end careers. This system protects you from them.
Okay, I like the sound of that protection. How does this router actually work? What's the implementation?
You start simple. Create 2 sleeves for your capital. Mentally or, physically, if your broker setup allows. Let's call them a core sleeve and an opportunity sleeve. The core holds the vast majority, say 85–90% of your capital. The opportunity sleeve gets the rest, 10–15%.
Okay, 2 buckets, core and opportunity.
Then define clear mandates. The core is for your really robust, low volatility, diversified strategies, the ones you built like a gardener. Its goal is survival, so it needs a ruthlessly small maximum drawdown target, maybe just 5%. The opportunity sleeve, that's for the more speculative stuff. High conviction ideas, maybe strategies you're still testing, things with higher potential upside, but also higher risk.
Got it. Safe core, riskier satellite.
And here's the crucial part. Automate the router logic. A simple rule. For example, when your core sleeve hits a new all-time high in equity, automatically route, say, 25% of those new gains over into the opportunity sleeve. Okay? You're funding speculation with profits, not dipping into your survival capital.
Smart. And what about the other way, if the opportunity sleeve takes a hit?
Good question. You set a drawdown limit there too, maybe 50%. If it hits that limit, boom, it's frozen. No more trading in that sleeve. And it stays frozen until new profits from the core sleeve have recapitalized it back above that threshold. This prevents throwing good money after bad in the speculative bucket.
Wow. So the success metric for this one is incredibly simple, isn't it?
It is. You are never forced to stop trading because you ran out of capital. Your risk of ruin becomes essentially zero. Your career longevity, for all practical purposes, it becomes infinite.
That's a powerful foundation. Gardner mindset, infinite gain capital structure. But markets change. Edges fade. How do you keep finding new advantages? Which brings us neatly to insight number 3. This one identifies your most valuable compounding edge. It's the sheer speed and efficiency of your idea to validation cycle. Alpha velocity.
Yes. This totally reframes how you should think about system building. It's not just about the quality of any single backtest anymore, though that's important. People like Kevin Davey, Andreas Klenau, they stress robustness. But this adds another dimension. Tempo. How fast can you test ideas? We're applying the principle of compounding not just to your capital, but to your rate of learning and discovery. It's like Sanka Arens talks about with productive note-taking, but for trading ideas.
So what this means practically is shifting your focus. Moving away from a product mindset, like, I desperately need a winning strategy, and embracing a process mindset, I need to build a winning factory.
Exactly, a factory for producing and testing strategies.
Because in a world where all edges eventually decay, and they do, the only durable advantage you have is the ability to consistently generate new ones, faster than they decay.
It's your strategic answer to market adaptability. It's how you stay ahead.
Okay, I'm sold on the need for speed. How do we actually implement this alpha velocity, make our factory faster?
Okay, 3 key steps. First, build a standardized hypothesis tester. Think of it as your core machine in the factory. Create a single master script, maybe using Python or whatever your tool is. It needs to take standardized inputs for a strategy's rules. Run it through a rigorous testing process, the strategy gauntlet, which is our next insight, and then output a consistent standardized report. All your key metrics, charts, everything the same way each time.
Standardization cuts down friction. Makes sense.
Second, instrument your workflow. You have to measure to improve. Time every step. How long does it take to get and clean new data? How long to code up a new idea? How long for the backtest itself to run? You need the data on your own process.
Find the bottlenecks.
Exactly. Which leads to the third step. Declare war on friction. Your primary goal becomes relentlessly attacking those bottlenecks you just identified. If cleaning data takes 80% of your time, that's your target. Invest time building a powerful, reusable data cleaning library. If your backtests are crawling, optimize the code. Maybe use faster hardware or cloud resources. Attack the friction.
So the success metric here isn't P&L, it's cycle time.
Precisely. A quantifiable reduction in your average idea to validated report cycle time. Imagine going from testing maybe 1 idea a week to testing 5 or even 10. You know most will fail. That's okay. But that sheer speed dramatically increases your odds of finding the real winners, the robust edges. Speed guarantees discovery over time.
Okay, speeding up the factory is great. But now you have all these ideas flying through. How do you make sure you're not just quickly producing garbage? How do you ensure quality control? That leads perfectly into our fourth critical insight, the strategy gauntlet. Because, let's be brutally honest, a single simple backtest, it often tells a beautiful, seductive story that falls apart in the real world.
Yes. This gauntlet is our practical, systematized response to those really important warnings from people like Marcos Lopez de Prado, who essentially calls classical backtesting deeply flawed, prone to overfitting, and Nassim Taleb, who constantly warns us about being fooled by randomness, those statistical siren songs that look great on paper but are just noise. We're basically taking robust testing methods and putting them into one unified, mandatory framework.
Why is this so crucial? It sounds like a lot of work.
It is work, but it's essential work, because the gauntlet acts as your objective, unemotional filter. It protects you from your own worst enemies as a system developer. Hope, confirmation bias, falling in love with your own ideas. It institutionalizes skepticism. It forces you to try and kill your beautifully back-tested but maybe fragile ideas before the market does it for you, taking your capital with it. It protects your capital and, frankly, your sanity.
Okay, institutionalizing skepticism. I like that.
Yeah.
So walk us through this gauntlet. What are the stages? What tests does a strategy have to survive?
All right, it's a multi-stage process. Stage 1, the basic backtest. Just run it on your full historical data set. Does it show any basic edge at all? If not, discard it immediately. No point wasting more time.
Failfest. Okay.
Stage 2, the walk-forward analysis. This is key. You break your historical data into chunks, say 12 sequential periods. Yeah. You optimize the strategy parameters on chunk 1, then you test its performance out of sample on chunk 2. Then you optimize on chunks 1 and 2 combined and test on chunk 3, and so on. This simulates how the strategy might perform in real time as you periodically re-optimize. It heavily punishes strategies that aren't robust to changing market conditions or slight parameter drift.
Simulates real life much better. Makes sense.
That's next. Stage 3. The Monte Carlo simulation. Take all the individual trades generated during that walk-forward test. Now, shuffle their order randomly, maybe 10,000 times, and recalculate the equity curve each time. This creates a probability distribution of all the possible equity curve paths your strategy could have taken, given the same trades occurred in a different sequence. It gives you a much more realistic, statistically sound estimate of your potential maximum drawdown, rather than just the single path that happened historically.
Getting a handle on the range of possible outcomes. Okay.
Stage 4, the parameter sensitivity test. Go back to your strategy's key parameters, moving average lengths, indicator thresholds, whatever they are. Systematically vary each key parameter slightly around the value you chose during optimization. A truly robust strategy should show a smooth, kind of convex plateau of profitability. Performance shouldn't collapse if a parameter changes by 10%. A fragile, over-optimized strategy will often see its performance just fall off a cliff with tiny parameter changes. That's a huge red flag.
Looking for stability, not a knife edge optimal.
Exactly. And finally, stage 5, the cost and slippage stress test. Rerun your best case analysis, but this time, crank up your assumed transaction costs and slippage. Double them, triple them compared to your initial estimate. Does the edge completely disappear? If your strategy's profitability is so thin that slightly higher real-world friction kills it, it's probably not worth trading. You need a buffer.
Wow, that's comprehensive. So the consequences, fewer strategies make it through.
Absolutely. Your go-live rate, the percentage of ideas that actually make it to real trading, will definitely drop, probably significantly. And this is the critical point, the average longevity and, crucially, the performance of the strategies that do survive this gauntlet will increase dramatically. You're filtering for true robustness.
Quality over quantity. Okay, that covers systematic strategies. But what about discretionary trading? Those high-conviction ideas. Our fifth insight takes us there. It delves into generating profitable trades from what's called a variant perception, basically, having a correct view that genuinely differs from the market consensus. And the key is, this isn't about being a genius. It's presented as a repeatable skill you can cultivate.
That's right. This insight really takes that core lesson you hear repeatedly in Jack Schwager's Market Wizards books, the immense power of having a non-consensus view that turns out to be right and combines it with very practical techniques. Techniques for intellectual honesty, like the ones Julia Galef champions in the Scout Mindset, and the cognitive debiasing frameworks laid out by Daniel Kahneman. It's about building a systematic process for thinking differently, and importantly, thinking better.
Why is this so powerful? I mean, what's wrong with just confirming your ideas?
Because our natural human tendency, our default mode, is confirmation bias. We actively seek out information that confirms what we already believe and ignore or dismiss contradictory evidence. Most traders spend their time trying to prove their ideas right. This framework forces you to do the opposite. It forces you to spend your time actively trying to destroy your own best ideas. It systematically inverts confirmation bias. Doing this regularly builds the mental muscle needed to see the market more clearly, more objectively than the crowd.
So you become your own harshest critic before placing the trade.
Precisely. It embodies intellectual rigor in your discretionary trading.
Okay, so let's say I have a high conviction trade idea. What does this variant perception checklist look like in practice? What questions do I need to ask myself?
All right, 5 key steps before you pull the trigger. Step 1. Articulate the consensus. Force yourself to write down clearly the dominant market story. What is the belief that is currently priced in? What does everyone seem to believe right now about this asset or market?
Nail down the common view first.
Okay. Step 2. State your variant view. In a separate, clear statement, articulate your alternative hypothesis. What crucial thing do you believe the consensus is missing, misinterpreting, or underweighting? What's your unique angle?
My hypothesis versus the markets.
Step 3. Conduct the ideological Turing test. This is borrowed from Julia Galef. You have to argue the consensus case, the view you disagree with, so passionately, so convincingly, that a neutral observer reading it wouldn't know you don't actually believe it. This forces you to deeply understand the opposing arguments, not just dismiss them.
Steel manning the opposition. Powerful.
Step 4. Search for disconfirmation. Actively list the top 3 specific pieces of information or events that, if they were to happen or become known, would definitively prove your variant view wrong. Then, and this is crucial, actively go looking for that disconfirming evidence. Don't hide from it.
Hunt for the reasons you might be wrong.
And finally, step 5. Identify the catalyst. This is critical. Why is the consensus wrong now? What specific event, data release, or change in conditions will cause the rest of the market to realize its mistake and eventually adopt your view, driving the price toward your target? A correct variant perception without a plausible catalyst is often just dead money. It might be right eventually, but eventually can be a long time.
Right. A market can stay irrational longer than you can stay solvent. Need that trigger.
Exactly. The success metric here is pretty clear if you apply this rigorously. You should see a higher win rate and, perhaps more importantly, a dramatically improved average risk-reward ratio on your discretionary trades. Why? Because you're only deploying significant capital on ideas that have survived this intense intellectual stress test.
Filtering discretionary ideas just like systematic ones, but through intellectual rigor instead of backtests. I like it. Okay, moving on. Insight number 6 tackles a familiar demon for many traders, those moments of self-sabotage. Overtrading, impulsive revenge trading after a loss, taking way too much size. This insight treats these errors not as failures of willpower, but as a problem of cognitive overload. It's where your fast, intuitive System 1 hijacks your slower, rational System 2. And the proposed solution isn't just try harder, but building simple mechanical circuit breakers directly into your trading platform or process.
Yes, this is a direct, practical application of Kahneman's thinking fast and slow. We're taking his description of our biased, easily triggered System 1 and treating it like an engineering problem to be solved with rules and constraints. And then we layer on the ethos you hear from successful prop film traders like Mike Bellafiore, emphasizes focusing on process, rules, and execution over relying on gut feel, especially when under pressure. We're building systems to enforce discipline when we're most likely to lose it.
Why is this framing so profound? Because, let's be honest, how many times have we beaten ourselves up after an impulsive mistake, thinking, ugh, I just need more self-control, more willpower?
Exactly. This insight flips that script entirely. It reframes self-control issues not as a moral failing, but as a user interface or user experience design problem. How can we design our trading environment to prevent our worst impulses?
Because willpower is finite. Right? It gets depleted, the system conserves it.
Precisely. It builds in automatic safeguards that protect you from your predictable failure modes, especially when you're stressed, tired, or emotional, exactly when your willpower is at its lowest ebb. It's proactive, automated discipline.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What do these circuit breakers look like? Give us some concrete examples.
Sure. Here are 3 simple, powerful examples you could implement. Rule 1, the velocity limiter. Instrument your trading platform or just track it manually if needed so that if you execute more than, say, X trades within Y minutes, maybe 5 trades in 10 minutes, you define your threshold, an automatic 5-minute cooldown period is triggered. During this cooldown, the trade execution button is literally disabled. It forces a pause, preventing frantic overtrading.
A forced timeout. I can see how that would help. What else?
Rule 2, the loss streak lockout. Define a number of consecutive losing trades, maybe 3. If you hit that streak, the system automatically flattens all your open positions in that strategy or market and locks you out from initiating any new trades in it for the rest of the trading day. This is a direct countermeasure to that destructive urge for revenge trading, trying to immediately win back what you just lost, usually by taking bigger, dumber risks.
Ooh, that's a tough one, but probably very effective. And the third,
Rule 3, the "are you sure" friction layer. This targets impulsive sizing. If you attempt to place a trade with a size significantly larger than your average, say 1.5 times or more, a confirmation dialog box pops up. But here's the key. You can't just mindlessly click OK. You must physically type a coherent, maybe 25-word minimum, rationale explaining why this specific trade justifies the increased size. That simple act of forcing you to articulate the why engages your rational system too, adding crucial friction against impulsive, oversized bets.
adding friction to slow down System 1. Clever.
The success metric for implementing these is straightforward. A measurable reduction in the frequency and, crucially, the financial cost of your unforced errors, especially those patterns linked to overtrading, revenge trading, and impulsive sizing. You'll see it in your trade log.
All right, our final insight, number 7, is truly fascinating. It reframes your own emotions. It suggests they aren't just random noise to be ignored or suppressed. They are potentially valuable data signals. Signals pointing to possible flaws in your thinking, your strategy, or even your physical state. And it proposes that the most effective way to debug your own performance is through a systematic audit, correlating your trading results with your psychological and physiological state.
Yeah, this is a really grounded, practical take on some of the more esoteric bioadaptive trading ideas out there. It takes that core lesson from mental game coaches like Jared Tendler that your emotions are signals, trying to tell you something important, and combines it with biological insights like those John Coates explored in The Hour Between Dog and Wolf about how our physiology impacts risk-taking. What it creates is a structured feedback loop for mastering that crucial, often neglected human element in trading performance.
So what does this mean for me, the trader? How does this change things day to day?
It fundamentally changes your relationship with your own mind and body. Instead of seeing fear or stress as enemies to be conquered or ignored, you start learning to listen to them. You treat these internal states as potentially valuable, non-lagging indicators of your current performance capacity, your decision-making quality right now. It turns that often fuzzy, subjective work of working on your mindset into a concrete, data-driven engineering problem you can actually solve.
Okay, treating myself like another system to be analyzed and optimized. How do we actually set up this psychophysiological audit? What's the process?
It starts with creating what we call the audit database. It can be incredibly simple, a spreadsheet, a notes app, maybe a dedicated tool like Airtable. You need columns to log data for each trading day. Key things would be your P&L for the day, the number of trades you made, your sleep quality from the night before, rated 110, your general stress level during the trading day, 110, maybe even your nutrition quality, 110, like did you eat junk or properly, and a simple binary tag. Critical error, yes, no, did you make a significant mistake you recognized?
So building a daily log of internal and external factors alongside results.
Exactly. Step 2 is crucial. Log religiously. You need data. Commit to logging this information every single trading day without fail for a decent period, say 60 consecutive trading days. And you have to be brutally honest with yourself, especially on the subjective scores like stress and sleep.
Consistency and honesty are key. Got it. Then what?
Step 3, run correlation analysis. After you have that block of data, maybe 60 days worth, run some simple correlation analyses. You're looking for patterns. Does low sleep quality correlate with days you tagged with critical error? Do high stress levels correlate with larger losses or more trades?
Let the data reveal the connections.
Exactly. Which leads to step 4, discover your personal failure signature. The data will start telling you your truth. Maybe you discover that 80% of your critical error days happen when your self-reported sleep score was below a 7. Or perhaps your biggest losing days almost always follow days where you skipped your morning workout and felt stressed. This isn't vague self-help anymore. It's data. Your personal failure signature emerges, and the solution isn't just, oh, I need to be more disciplined. No, it becomes a specific, actionable rule based on your data.
Like what? Give me an example of a rule.
Like, based on my data, I am not permitted to trade with more than 50% of my normal risk allocation on any day following a self-reported sleep score below 7. It's a hard-coded rule in your trading plan, triggered by your internal data.
Wow, using your own state as an input to your risk rules. That's powerful.
The success metric here is being able to clearly articulate, with data backing it up, your top 2 or 3 personal failure patterns or triggers. And crucially, having implemented specific, hard-coded rules in your trading plan to preemptively mitigate them based on that self-knowledge.
And there you have it. 7 really profound insights, we think, designed to help transform your trading journey, moving it away from being some kind of precarious sprint and towards a sustainable, adaptive, truly thriving process.
Yeah, and if you connect the dots, these aren't just, isolated tips or tricks. They're interconnected. They're foundational shifts in how you approach the markets and how you approach yourself within the markets. Each one is designed to build a more robust, more resilient, and ultimately a more profitable trading operation.
It really boils down to building systems, doesn't it? Both mechanical systems for trading and personal systems for managing yourself that allow you to adapt and simply endure.
That's the core idea. The market is an infinite game. Your primary goal has to be staying in that game long enough to let your edge compound. Cultivating your edge, adapting to the inevitable changes, and actively minimizing self-sabotage along the way.
So listening to all this, it definitely raises a question for you, our listener.
Considering these 7 insights, the gardener, the infinite game router, alpha velocity, the gauntlet, variant perception, cognitive load balancers, the psychophysiological audit, what specific step, maybe just one small step, will you take this week? A step to transition from maybe just trying to predict the market to purposefully cultivating your trading ecosystem and your own personal resilience within it.
We certainly hope this deep dive has given you plenty to think about, maybe sparked some ideas to explore, and hopefully some concrete actions to apply. Thank you so much for joining us on The Deep Dive, brought to you by Beyond Backtesting. Until next time, keep cultivating your success.